Hello, everyone. Welcome. We'll start in 1 minute so we can get, while we wait for folks to join. So welcome, everyone. And I know people are joining, we're really excited that you're here this evening. Thank you for joining Women's Way for the Closing the Gender Wealth Gap Forum on Family and Community Care. I'm Diane Corman-Levy, the Chief Disruptor at Women's Way, and I am delighted that you've decided to spend the next 90 minutes with us. While we wait for more folks to sign on, I would appreciate you taking the poll. We always want to know if this is your first time attending a Women's Way event. So if you could just answer that question, we would greatly appreciate it. Thank you. So today's forum is part of a year-long series whose purpose is to educate different stakeholders about the drivers of the gender wealth gap and action steps each of us can take to help close the gender wealth gap. Since October 2020, we have conducted 26 forums that address different drivers of the gender wealth gap, such as strengthening the early childhood education sector, decreasing gender and racial disparities in healthcare, increasing access to affordable housing, and eliminating the student debt crisis. During this year, 2025, we are exploring how we can create a future where all women and gender nonconforming people have the stability, care, and opportunities they need to thrive. Each session spotlights the change makers and organizations working across 4 dimensions of the gender wealth framework, a tool developed by Women's Way to promote dignity, equity, and joy in our communities. Today's session will explore the dimension of family and community care. Supporting your family and loved ones should not come at the cost of your job or income. Strong care networks and community-centered solutions are important to create safety, stability, and freedom. Today's panelists will share how we can build systems that prioritize care and connection. You have opportunities to ask questions to the speakers via the Q&A button located at the bottom of your screen, and we will do our best to address as many of your questions as possible. Closed captioning is enabled. If you do not want to see closed captioning, you can click the button Hide CC at the bottom of your screen. The chat is also enabled, so please share your comments during the session. We love to hear how you're reacting to the conversations during these panel discussions. And to create a safer space for all of us to engage in honest and challenging conversations, we ask that each of you abide to the session norms listed in the chat box. Finally, we are recording the session and we will make it available for you if you want to view again, and for those who cannot attend today's session. After the session, we will also send you a list of resources related to today's topic and a survey to evaluate the session. We deeply value your input as we work to continue to improve these educational forums. So before we get to our panel discussion, Kelly Sheard, our Chief Strategy Officer, and I are going to spend the next few minutes providing an overview of the economic state of women, our new theory of change, and key concepts related to the gender wealth framework. I first want to just thank our session sponsors who help us to provide these education forums for free. So this is our vision statement, and this is our starting point. It's what we dream of when we envision the future. And this can look like a wider community that comes together to ensure access to abortion and gender-affirming care, the opportunity to grow a family and not sacrifice a career, or post-incarceration resources to stabilize re-entering citizens. Our mission is really like why we exist and how we achieve our mission. And here we're talking about disrupting oppressive systems such as white supremacy and patriarchy, and strengthening alternative systems that will lead us to a brighter future. So we know that those who are living paycheck to paycheck and are not able to cover an unexpected $400 expense are predominantly women and gender nonconforming individuals. The region's largest demographic group living in poverty are women ages 25 to 34. Nationally, cis straight men have the lowest poverty rate and transgender people have the highest poverty rate. Related to these stats is the gender wealth gap, which at Women's Way we talk a lot about, and which is larger than the gender pay gap, and it continues, unfortunately, to grow. The gender wealth gap is a stronger indicator of economic insecurity than the pay gap, as it influences the ability to weather current financial challenges, as well as save and invest in the future. For every dollar a white man owns in material wealth, women overall own just 32 cents. When considering the racial demographics of the same statistics, Black and Latino women own just 1 penny. And currently, there is no data on the wealth gap for transgender individuals, an area that desperately needs to be researched. So we talk about the problem, which is large and vast. Like racial injustice, climate change, and world hunger, the gender wealth gap is a systemic issue, and it will require systemic answers. It is therefore important to examine the design of systems that consistently produce this outcome. And systems are not natural or inevitable. They are constructed by decisions and choices. Our dominant economic system is designed to embed racialized capitalism, wealth supremacy, and heteropatriarchy into its very function, leading to a growing gender wealth gap. So it's important to pause to examine these theoretical frameworks as they help explain how and why marginalized genders have inadequate access to and limited experience of wealth. So racialized capitalism is capitalism at its core and is focused on private ownership of property where one class of people control and profit from the labor of the subordinate class. The social and economic structure of capitalism reflects a system of relationships of domination among categories of people. In the United States, that domination is often racialized. Wealth supremacy is an economic system that believes wealthy people matter more than others. It is a cultural and political processes and attitudes by which wealthy people accumulate and maintain prestige, power, and privilege. Our economic system protects the extreme hoarding of the privileged class by supporting and enabling strategies of extraction and exploitation. And then heteropatriarchy is a logic that justifies the subordination of all those who are not heterosexual cisgender men. Anything outside of this constructed norm is seen as deviant and unworthy, and therefore dehumanization and oppression of other genders becomes justified. So we're talking about systemic causes, right? That gender inequities is a systemic issue. So to challenge and disrupt dominant systems that perpetuate and worsen gender inequities, we must understand the conditions that keep systems in place. This diagram shows the 6 conditions that keep a problem in place. The explicit conditions, the one at the top of the triangle, includes policies and practices and resource flows, such as government, institutional, and organizational rules, regulations, and priorities, activities of institutions, coalitions, networks, and other entities targeted to improving social and environmental progress, and how money, people, knowledge, information, and other assets are allocated and distributed. The semi-explicit conditions are relationships and connections and power dynamics, which are the quality of connections and communications occurring among actors in the system, and the distribution of decision-making power, authority, and influence among individuals and organizations. And the implicit conditions are mental models. Oftentimes, these are implicit because we don't think about these and we don't understand how they really help keep a system in place or a problem in place. And they are mental models, which are deeply held beliefs and assumptions and taken for granted ways of operating that influence how we think, what we do, and how we talk. Mental models are shaped and influenced by narratives, which are stories we tell and the mindsets, beliefs, and ideas we hold that help us organize our thinking and explain how the world works. So when it comes to the gender wealth gap, we often find harmful narratives that prop up oppressive power structures and enable inequitable outcomes. So related to these 6 conditions of systems change is our theory of change. And don't worry, I'm not going to go into detail about this. But what will it take to realize our mission and ultimately our vision? And we focus on 2 key areas, narrative change and capacity building for systems change. So we understand that gender inequities are deeply rooted in long-standing systems of white supremacy and capitalism. And we must tackle them at the root in order to see changes. We cannot keep only treating the symptoms of inequities and not address the root causes. So to do this, we are investing in narrative change that will shift conversations about gender and economic equity and help build the capacity of our partners to lead and invest with equity. I'm now going to pass this on to Kelly Sheard, our Chief Strategy Officer.
Great, thank you. So the gender wealth framework provides a way to capture the nuance of an experience of wealth that is most relevant to folks of a marginalized gender experience. It's a roadmap for our network to understand and measure whether their work is moving toward closing the gender wealth gap. And what we have here is the definition of wealth that we use, which is piloted by the Maven Collaborative. Next slide. The framework also emphasizes the importance of thinking about dominant narratives, meaning the stories that we tell about how we got here, who deserves what in order to be well, and how our society should work. We also call attention to how these narratives inform the design and outcomes of the current economic system and how it impacts marginalized genders. For more information on the Gender Wealth Framework, check out our Gender Wealth Framework report, which will be linked in the chat. Next slide. The Gender Wealth Framework expands how we think about and measure abundance and success, and the framework encompasses 3 components. Next slide. Material well-being measures traditional notions of economic stability and provides a point-in-time assessment of one's financial portfolio. Measurements focus on access and affordability of resources. Lived experience measures the felt experience of abundance in community and institutions. Systems, conditions, and context acknowledges and highlights specificities of wealth inequality by examining the conditions that are keeping us from making progress towards more liberatory futures. Things like mindsets, power dynamics, policies, and resource flows. We want to think about how all these things work in systems to provide specific experiences for marginalized genders. Next slide. From here, the Gender Wealth Framework is focused on wealth in 5 dimensions. And in today's session, we'll be focused on family and community care. Next slide. Going deeper, family and community care is defined by the following indicators of success: being able to care for children, families, and community without fear of losing a job or economic security, having high-quality caregiving options due to a robust care infrastructure, having access to networks of care and mutual aid across the lifespan, and being free from gender-based violence in families and communities. Next slide. Our goal with this session is to introduce you to organizations that are piloting innovative solutions in the care space. We want our network to understand what's possible as we work together to create futures of abundance that work for everyone. To that end, I'm pleased to welcome our moderator, Aathira Chennat, Program and Data Manager, into the space. Aathira will introduce our panel of changemakers into the webinar. Welcome, Aathira.
Thanks, Kelly. Hi, everyone. My name is Aathira, and I'm the program manager, as Kelly said, and I'm really excited to be here and get to moderate this discussion. I've had the pleasure of working with all 4 of our panelists through our Gender Economic Equity Program, which is a general operating grant fund that's also a 3-year community of practice. So I've been seeing and working and learning from all 4 of these individuals twice a month for the last couple months. And so I've gotten to see firsthand just how thoughtful, knowledgeable, and passionate each person is. And I really think this is going to be such a great conversation. So I would love for our panelists to come on screen, join me here, and we can make our way through some introductions. I was thinking, I know I didn't prep you on this, so maybe I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here, but I'd love for all of you to introduce yourselves, the organization you're representing and your role there, and maybe to kind of have some sort of like ember of joy before we kind of move into what is a really complex and urgent discussion. I would love to hear if there's like any one small kind of thing that's bringing you joy or happiness these days. And to give you a chance to think about it, I'll go first. my cat is finally reaching, like, I think he's like officially a senior cat. And I think how I figured this out is that he's like obsessed with my heating pad, so much so that I think it's his heating pad now. And he'll even let me, like, he'll curl up next to me on the couch and I will put the heating pad on top of him and he will stay there for like hours, just like totally blissed out. And that makes me very happy. So um, yeah, I'll pass it off to anyone who wants to go next and introduce themselves. Or I'll pick somebody. Kristina, do you want to go?
I'll go. Yeah, sure. My name is Kristina Valdez, and I'm the CEO of Along the Way. Something that brought me joy was the snow that we got yesterday in the Poconos. I live in the Poconos, 2 hours north of Philadelphia, and I really enjoy the seasons. So I was happy, although many people probably were not. It brought me a lot of joy to see that.
Hi, my name is Philipa. I am a super mom. That's what I like to call myself because I believe so much in motherhood. And I tell myself how much mothers do. And that's something that makes me happy to be able to leave everything else and concentrate on the job that is the most important job in the whole world.
Yes, super mom. I love that.
Hi, my name is Kaiima Griffith. I'm the case manager and community engagement specialist at Connectedly, and I'm currently taking swimming lessons, and that's been a good time. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Marquita Bolden. I'm the executive director of the Therapy Center of Philadelphia, and ooh, it's fall. And fall brings me joy. I love sweaters. I love the turning leaves. I love the coffee. I love everything warm. So I'm in my joy right now. This is a great time. I love fall.
Fall's my favorite season, and I'm noticing that all of us are wearing what looks like really comfy sweaters, so good on us. Okay, cool. So let's move into this first question here so we can get to know a little bit about what you all do. So how do you define care work? And kind of building off of that, we're talking about family and community care. So we're curious to know, in terms of your work, what does family care look like in your organization? And by that we mean, like, how does your organization understand what makes up a family? So what is care work and what is family care? What is a family? Anyone can start.
We can start. So for Along the Way, we define family as anyone that shows up for you. So family could be the family that you grew up in. We provide services to grandparents raising grandchildren. We help in the foster care system with when kids are not able to be with their biological family temporarily. So really, it's anyone that is caring for other humans. And care for us is what makes everything else work. Like if we don't have care, then you can't go to work. You know, we do childcare, but it could be any type of care, right? Like we all, as humans, we have bodies and minds that need care. So for us, it's pretty broad, and without it, nothing else matters. You can't do anything. So it's critically important.
Yeah. And while I have you, could you just give like a little overview of what Along the Way does?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it's
So
okay.
we provide childcare with wraparound support for low-income single mothers and sometimes single dads, but mostly single moms, uh, to be able to have the infrastructure that in their own lives that many people have, like through family support networks. If someone doesn't have that, then like we come around them to provide that type of support to fill in the gap so that they can, you know, take a training or do GED classes or, you know, anything that's like outside of the traditional hours. Um, and we do that with the wraparound support through deep collaborations with other agencies, so that the women that we serve, they don't have to go to like 20 different places to just get like basic stability. So we partner with different organizations to make their experience easier, because their lives are very hard, and it's hard to go to 20 different places with 20 different processes. So we kind of streamline for them support so that they can ultimately invest in themselves and have long-term stability.
Yeah, thank you for that. Sounds like you kind of provide family through your work a little bit. Yeah. Kita, would you want to share a little bit?
Yeah, I'm happy to flow in. So we're with the Therapy Center of Philadelphia, and TCP provides psychotherapy services for people who experience gender oppression. So women, trans folks, non-binary folks, and gender expansive folks. We work through a lens that is anti-racist, that is gender affirming, that is queer affirming, and is trans affirming in all that we do. And because, as was described in the opening, our community are people who experience financial anxiety. We work through a sliding scale model. So our services go down to $30 per session to make sure that we are accessible for folks who need to access service in that way. And in addition to that, we also have a separate pot of money for folks who are trans and are not able to afford even the lowest at the sliding scale. So we're able to subsidize further to offer even lower cost therapy services, understanding that because of institutional discrimination, money can really be a barrier because of reasons that are beyond the human in front of us. So that is who we are and what we do. We've been around since 1972. And TCP exists because we understand that our field, psychotherapy, is built on sexism and racism, and our hope is to be able to disrupt that as women and trans folks serving women and trans folks through a lens that wants to be with the human in front of us. So what is care? To us, care is healing. It's healing work, and that's spiritual healing, that's psychological healing, that's emotional healing. That anytime that anyone's providing care, regardless of whether you're a therapist or not, you're doing a little bit of healing with the person in front of you. So it's a little bit magical in that way. So as therapists, we see ourselves as healers, and because we work with folks who are also involved in a lot of care activity in different capacities, they're also healers as well. And the hope is that in coming to work with us and engaging in therapy and engaging in some healing work for themselves, that they're leaving our space a little bit more, with a little bit more capacity because of the healing work that they've done. And in that, they're able to be more attuned. They're able to be a little bit more compassionate. They're able to be a safer person to be around when they go back to family, when they go back to community, when they go back to other spaces. And they're able to pass that along to the folks they have contact with. And then they're able to pass that along, and like, so it goes, it kind of goes down the road. So the hope is that it kind of, person by person, we can heal the world like bit by bit. And to the other piece of your question, family for us is wherever you have that sense of belonging, like whoever claims you, whoever you want to claim. Family is choice. So sometimes that looks like birth, blood, biological family, sometimes not. Sometimes that's chosen family. For us, family is an action word, so it really is the people who you create bond and connection with.
Thank you. I love this idea of thinking about care and care and healing as kind of like a participatory thing. It's like a two-way street. Everyone who engages in it has the opportunity to heal and grow together. That's a really great way to think about it. Yeah, I'm with the magic. I love magic. Um, who wants to go next? Yes, Philipa.
For women in dialogue, what we do with our twins and our sisters, because we are more than just one organization. Women in Dialogue is umbrella. And this is more of what we do here in Philly, there in so many other states, and even worldwide. All this encompass our view of what women are. We recognize that if we do not recognize what we do, what we offer, and if we do not talk about what we offer, it will be very difficult to get people, that's the male folk, to really appreciate what we offer. We've been around for very long. I used to say it started when I was born. That was 1972. And care, our care dimension does not only encompass the woman who are the majority, 4 times heading the family unit, 4 times. 8.7 million statistically are headed by women compared to 2.3 million headed by males. Besides that, we also take care of the earth. So it's not just organic versus chemical fertilized food produce that is being brought to the table, but as far away as in India, we have proven from our projects and support that we give to our sister organizations that women as caregivers to the earth, as farmers, can bring a lot to the table and a lot good food than industrialized foods. We support grandmothers, we support sisters, we support mothers, we support all females in any dimension, trans or biological females, and we support every other sister organization that have a project that is similar to us, like Women's Week that we are here today.
Thank you. And so you do some grassroots organizing here in Philadelphia, and you also provide support to individuals who are navigating different systems, like CPS or behavioral health. Is that correct? And then you also do some advocacy work.
Yes, we have Give Us Back Our Children to support mothers whose children were taken away. This is about the CPS, taking children away, based on the same topic we're here for, because of poverty. That's one of the listed reasons why some children are removed from their loving parents or loving mothers based on poverty. We support that. We have that project that's been ongoing for a while now with the CPS.
Mm-hmm. So you've got a lot of different initiatives going on.
We do.
Okay, great. And Kaiima.
Yeah, so again, I'm with Connectedly. We're formerly known as SOWN, the Supportive Older Women's Network. We have a fairly new name, but we remain a supportive network for older adults. I work within our Grand Family Resource Center. It's a program that provides family and community care to grandparents raising grandchildren. We also have a Healthy Lives program that takes place in senior housing throughout Philadelphia. And participants get to have meaningful discussions, provide emotional support to each other, and really exchange information and resources. Our Homebound program provides weekly group counseling and support sessions to seniors who are homebound. And within our Grand Family Resource Center, we have 3 different programs. We have a literacy program, the Philly Families Read Together, that provides literacy workshops, digital literacy training, and family support to our grand families. We also have Philly Families Eat Smart program that provides nutrition education, healthy cooking workshops, things like that to our families. And lastly, we have our Philly Families Connect program, which provides facilitated weekly group sessions and grand family centered caregiving workshops and family events. In terms of our definition of care work, this can be found in our mission statement, which is strengthening community support networks, reducing social isolation, and improving the well-being of older adults, especially women. Within our Grand Family Resource Center, it is mostly grandmothers raising grandchildren, but we also see, and kind of a part of the name change was that we're also seeing grandfathers raising grandchildren. And we really try not to define what family is, because that can look like anything. And often family members or even family friends get involved to make sure that a child stays in or near family. Anyone who is willing to step up and care for the child really is family. And we also had to kind of like change our way of looking at things, because we are an organization who like tailor a lot of our programming to older adults, but nowadays grandparents aren't 50, 60, 70 anymore. They're much older, I mean, much younger rather. And it could be aunts raising nieces or older siblings raising their younger siblings. And I think it's also important to look at our peer groups. Many of our participants consider each other family. Often they say to group facilitators, I don't know what I would do without Connectedly and the peer support groups, but it's not often acknowledged that it's their willingness to care for and support each other that really makes what Connectedly is doing work. And each week they're willing to give up their personal time to connect with each other and really lift each other up.
Wow, that's really cool to hear. It's really nice to, well, yeah, it's really nice to hear how Connectedly has kind of shifted and adapted to meet the need in the community. And I also hear that in Therapy Center, just all of you are doing really kind of interesting alternative ways of meeting need and filling gaps. So just like giving you a little bit of flowers for that. And it's just, yeah, it's really awesome. So kind of building off of that, I have a question about your community. I guess you've kind of described who your community is. And so I'm wondering, for your community, what does dignity look like and feel like? And how do you know that you're working towards it? Anyone could hop in.
I'll say for the community we serve, it definitely would be older adults and kinship families, specifically grandparents raising grandchildren. As the case manager, I try to make sure grandparents have a choice in the resources and services that they receive. We have funds that can help with various needs, such as clothing and groceries, but it's not enough to just give them that resource if it doesn't fit their lives. And what I find is like, you have to ask questions like, where do you shop? Like, how many children are in the house? And try to give something that matches that and not just like a one fits all. And to make sure we're working towards this, we give out surveys after events, workshops, to get the family's input and to keep us on track. We also have weekly conversations with our grandparents, and we have grandparent peer ambassadors who connect with them on a level that we can't because they have a shared experience.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of dignity is choice and being able to feel heard and respected and understood. Yeah.
I could share a little bit. For us, dignity is innate. It's something that everybody has by virtue of being human. Respecting someone's dignity, though, is an action. That's a verb for us, and it's ensuring that there's infrastructure in place that allows human flourishing. And digging a little bit deeper, that means choice, predictability. A lot of our clients are living in the tyranny of the moment, just like crisis to crisis to crisis, uh, and that it's no human being living in perpetual crisis is able to have long-term stability, and that is a detriment to their innate dignity to not have a way to move forward in a happy, like, quality life because there's no infrastructure around them that allows that. So for us, dignity, everyone has it, but like we're trying to move towards making sure that everything we do is respecting that dignity by creating infrastructure.
Okay.
Oh,
Philipa.
yes, I also like to add to what Kaiima is talking about when it comes to the kind of family, the structure of family, and bringing out where women's in dialogue, how we support this notion of people believing that the work you do at home is not work, even when you do the same kind of work for income. And then bringing in the ideology of saying you must be doing some kind of work, or these are the kind of works that you have to be doing for you to be able to assess the kind of services that are due you. Medicaid, food stamp that are being, Medicare that are being taken to income based. The income that is being talked about is like bringing indignity to people who are already working and telling them what you're doing, we don't consider it as work. As a mom who works as a caregiver, both at home and outside my home, I've always tell the story of somebody is sent to my home to work, to take care of my special needs child, while I'm sent to someone else's house to take care of the special needs child, which doesn't make any sense. And then if I should stay to take care of my special needs child, it's not considered as work. So I do not get income. Now take it, I'm still an able-bodied young woman. Take it to grandparents, like I said, Kaiima mentioned, who are taking care of their grandkids, who already walked into the system and retired, and are retired. And then the work they do, because it is for their family member, is they are being considered, no, you're not working, you do not earn income from this job, and so you are not entitled to get food stamp, you're not entitled to get this and that services that they will have got. And the way we at Women Dialogue are doing is really calling for no, first of all, recognizing that what we do is a job. Every mom is a working mom, and then asking that it be off the table to be asking for income before services or care or anything that anybody needs in the sense of all this Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP be given to anyone. And this is how we serve the community.
Yeah, thank you so much for kind of, I feel like really, really descriptively kind of showing us some of the major issues with the care gaps in the United States and lack of care infrastructure. And all of the different loops with benefits and all these other systems that it can cause for families. And so kind of building off what you say about care work being work, like caregiving to your children being work, and your family members, I would love to move into this question about narrative change, which is something that we've been talking about a lot about as a cohort, and also something that Women's Way is really passionate about. So my question to you all is, to build an equitable world for your community, for your work, what's the number one narrative that we need to challenge? And what is the alternative narrative that your work tells?
So I think for us at TCP, the most problematic narrative right now is one that's being spun by the current administration in the White House, which is that gender affirming care is harmful, that it needs to be shut down, that it needs to be stopped at any cost, that it's dangerous somehow. And this couldn't be further from the truth. The first thing I will say is that is untrue. And really, the spin is simply because their idea about gender affirming care is simply because it's solely for trans folks. And I will state for y'all that gender affirming care is for everybody, because everyone has a gender and everyone deserves to be affirmed in their gender, and everyone deserves to receive care that aligns with their gender. So at TCP, our founding back in 1972, which back then was intended for women, was structured around the idea that in the psychology field, which was created largely informed by cishet white men who were doing research studies on other cishet white men, and therefore creating theories based on cishet white men. So much of psychological theory did not create space for women, for trans folks, for BIPOC folks. So people coming into therapy spaces were being harmed because they didn't fit into the narrative created by the psychology field. So when Therapy Center was created by women for women, we were creating gender affirming care, simply being women creating therapy for women. But everybody accesses gender affirming care, whether you're a man who's seeking Viagra or hair plugs, anything that you do that aligns with your gender and helps you to feel more within your body and helps you to feel good about moving through the world and the gender that you are is gender affirming care. Gender affirming care helps us to feel joy. It helps us to have emotional wellness. So this is the rock I will die on. Gender affirming care is for everybody, but it is critically life-saving for trans folks, and we need to change the narrative. It is critically important that we keep gender affirming care available for everyone because it's needed.
Yeah, I'll join you on that, Rock. Yeah, that's so well put. Don't be shy. We all
I
know
can
each other.
go.
It's no big deal. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I think along the way, we've been really thinking about how this narrative, I mean, we all know the bootstrap narrative, like you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So like I don't have to repeat that as like a false narrative, I don't think. But one of the like kind of digging underneath that a little bit is the the helping the masses, everyone that is alive, to realize the infrastructure that like got them to where they are now, like the invisible infrastructure. So, you know, when I think about like say my own life, I think about all the things that my family did. And even now, like I have my brother will pick up my kids if I'm have to go to Philly and then I hit traffic, or if there's an emergency, I have people that I could go to that would lend me money, or, you know, just this structure, like infrastructure that I have natively, like in my natural family. Not everyone has that. And one of the I think the reason the harmful narrative that you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps is that the people who have the natural infrastructure do not recognize it as infrastructure that helped them get where they are. So that's something that we've been trying to do at along the way with our stakeholders, helping them to realize that you might not think that you benefited from, you know, any kind of infrastructure in your life, and it might seem like you worked really hard to get where you are, but what are the invisible things? Because nobody does it alone, like nobody. So kind of bridging those, like um that gap in what I'm calling like self-awareness. I would frame it differently because that might be a little bit hard to hear that way, but you know, letting folks really think about like what underlies that bootstrap narrative and how can we relate to each other on a human level. So that's what I think is like really harmful and how we could possibly dismantle it.
Mhm. Yeah.
We have a problem, and the problem is childhood poverty. The number of children who go hungry. We're not talking about the SNAP issue that is current. We're talking about problems before pre-pandemic and after pandemic. There was a solution that was preferred, which helped in a very big way. And that solution was removed for whatsoever reasons. And the narratives that fuel that problem is this same narrative of bootstrapper and women's job are not job. Remember that statistically, 2/3 of the the job done in the whole world is done by women. Do you know how much women receive from all the income in the world? 5% of the world income. For people who are doing 2/3 of the job and receiving only 5%. And it's usually, I said statistically at the beginning that it is 4 times the number of men heading family that are headed by women. If it is headed by women and these women are not paid, what happens to the children? Poverty. And until the solution is, number one, until the narrative change. Number two, until women are paid what they're entitled to. Number three, until we consciously help women to eliminate childhood poverty, like the child tax credit that was paid on monthly basis. I'm not talking about end of the year because they always say, oh, you're going to get that in your tax refund. No, I want it now. I want it every month when the children need it to go for their, to eat extra food, healthier food, to go for what we develop them as children, have game, have swimming classes, have dancing classes, music classes. It is now every month. That reduce childhood poverty, and it will do it again if only they resume paying it back. And if only they deliberately decide to stop the narrative of, oh, pull yourself up by the bootstrap. And if they stop treating us by paying us what we do.
Mm. Yeah. And you do have one of the big campaigns at Women in Dialogue is for Care Income Now. And I've seen that that's gone at the federal level, and also there are different state initiatives. But yeah, I will post more information about that in the resource guide for people to read more about. And yeah, I'm just like seeing the deep connection between all three of you so far, sharing this narrative of like what's invisible and what needs to be made visible. And it's very rich. There's so many different ways to kind of attack at that invisibility. And I think that's what's key to making narrative change happen, is looking at, different perspectives. So just think that's really cool. And I wanted to pass it over to Kaiima if you had anything you wanted to add.
I just want to echo that a little bit. And I think because many caregivers are women, the narrative is that they should sacrifice everything, whether that's health, hobbies, even their career. And there's this expectation of self-sacrifice or sacrifice of self. These grandparents often make the decision to leave work so that money can go towards the child or the home and not daycare or even themselves. And I would just love for everyone to acknowledge that being a caregiver is real work, something that deserves to be compensated and shouldn't be as sacrificial. There should be systems in place to help families in these circumstances, and support them financially or otherwise rather. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that means we can kind of continue down this path of, as you mentioned, systems that need to be in place. So, and the cost of care. So I want to ask, how are folks in your ecosystem attempting to manage the cost burden of care? And kind of tagging on to that, like, what we have this ever-changing landscape minute to minute of what we can rely on as a social safety net. So how are all of these different programs factoring in to this burden?
I could go. So our most expensive service has no like state or federal funding, like even like avenue at all, and no insurance reimbursement avenue so far. This is the in-home childcare. It's like an on-demand nanny that fills in gaps. Yet it still is, it's the cost to provide that service is on par with non-medical home care, which is around $40 an hour, because we employ caregivers that are paid living wages and get benefits and are incur paid training time. So the quality of our service can be top tier. So without any insurance, state or federal funding, you might be like, well, how do you even provide this service at all? And it's very, very difficult. We have gotten investment from Women's Way, from other foundations. It's mostly foundations that are supporting this. But what we've done, because even that is a really big lift for philanthropy to be asked to do the job of government fully, in my opinion, what should be government. So we have developed a co-investment model that requires 3 to 4 payers into the childcare. So we have the income-based copayment for the moms. Some of the moms don't qualify even for any copayment, not even $1, because they're very low income, and then they get the service for free. Most of the moms will pay like $1 to $3 an hour. And then we try to get employer investment. So we work with businesses. That's pretty challenging to get, but we do have some employers now that are paying into this after 2 years of working on the narrative change, the mental models that Women's Way started with. And we have, and then we have grants that match the employer contribution and donations. So we just took this like very expensive service and we're splitting it up 4 ways to try to even, because we're like even having, like, we don't have insurance or anything. So like that was the only thing we could think to do, because I knew right away, like, I'll never fundraise my way into like childcare stability for more than like a handful of people. if
Mhm.
there's, if we just keep with grassroots fundraising. So that's what we've done, but it is not ideal because it basically requires us to align 3 funders before we can accept clients.
Mhm.
So if we don't have, we have backbone funding right now with COVID recovery money, and we have Women's Way funding, and we have, so we have 2 funders, then we need to find like a 3rd funder. So it's very challenging, but it's working temporarily, and we're like this to figure out, okay, where can we make changes that are more sustainable,
Mhm.
to grow the service.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, what like I'm trying to say, I think mountain, I was thinking molehill, but mountain of work that you have to do, but also it's like that's really what it costs. Like that's what a living wage looks like. That's what people deserve to receive when they do care work. Um, so yeah, I just hope we can continue to find ways to make the money work, and scale, because that's, yeah, so vital. Yeah. I know, Marquita, you had mentioned something to me before today about the mental health care gap. So I would love for you to talk a little bit more about what that means.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, TCP was founded to try to support the gap in mental health care. So for those of you who are familiar with Medicaid, the threshold is thus that there are so many people who don't qualify for Medicaid who are still living paycheck to paycheck, who are financially anxious, and still can't afford the cost of therapy, even with insurance. So TCP tries to fill that gap, understanding that psychotherapy services are so critical for people to be able to receive the care that they need so that they can be fully participatory in workspaces, in family spaces. Effectively, our mental health affects every single thing that we do. And if we're not emotionally well, it's really difficult to maintain jobs. It's difficult to show up for your children. It's difficult to show up for other people who are dependent on you. If you're struggling with anxiety, depression, PTSD, all of those things. So, good mental wellness is kind of the foundation for all the things. Um, so, TCP effectively creates a sliding scale so that people can access care on a long-term basis at incredibly low fees, because we understand that most people, particularly in Philadelphia, where we are struggling with astronomical poverty rates, although it's improved recently, it's still very difficult. Um, and also understanding that quality care is just not going to be a couple of sessions. It requires significant amount of time. So we offer low-cost therapy so that people can have access to dignified, high-quality care, um, for people who aren't able to afford $100, $150 per session. It slides down to 30. And again, we have a separate fund that we are able to get through individual donors to subsidize people who need even more support. We really, really depend on foundations like Women's Way and others to help us to subsidize our sliding scale. So thank you, thank you, thank you. But mental health is difficult. Most people have difficulty finding a therapist who is qualified. Most people have difficulty finding a therapist they can afford. Um, and most people have difficulty finding a therapist who understands societal oppression and how it can impact mental health. So we fill the gap, and also we're not enough. We need a larger infrastructure here in Philadelphia and beyond that offers affordable quality therapy for people who are able to maybe pay $5, $10, $15 a session, and we're not there. I expect it to get worse next year as people are kicked off of Medicaid, as the costs of private insurance goes up because of ACA. It's going to get really bad. So I suspect that our sliding scale is going to be even more in demand as the Affordable Care Act becomes unaffordable for folks, just given the big, beautiful bill. So that is what we're currently facing.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there have been some, big things happening in the last couple days, and there's been a couple calls to action to like call your senator or something along those lines. And not to put you on the spot, but I would love to be able to share anything out that you have in the resource guide, so we can connect afterwards, or if you have something, you can feel free to share it. But yeah. It is effectively insurance that's supposed to subsidize the cost of care. And when that doesn't happen, care still needs to happen. So yeah, it's dark times. I wanted to also kick this question over to Philipa. You mentioned taking care of your child who has disabilities, and having to be a caretaker in somebody else's home when you have a child that you would like to caretake. And you talked a little bit about the specific costs that are maybe more invisible than people understand. So I was wondering if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yes. I'll first of all say, not in all states, but in Pennsylvania here, through the advocacy and continuously pushing. During the pandemic, parents were now allowed to walk children who have special needs or who are disabled and who do not need specialty care, like nurse. There are some children that need a nurse, so children still need people from outside home beside the family. Prior to that, and still in other states, it used to be that Medicaid will not pay you to work with any child that is your child that is below 18 years old. It's funny because if there is children are well known to need their parents before they reach 18. And now these are special needs children and disabled children who needs their parent also. And now it's the deal is you got to leave that child and allow another parent or another person to come into your home. And we will not pay you if you're taking care of that child because it's not your job. But you can go to another person's house to go and take care of a child that's having similar issues to your child. And then we'll pay you. And then we'll also provide services for someone to come to your house to take care of it. And in the cost could be that the person that is sent to your home, like in my own case, the person sent to my home to take care of my son was being paid $18 per hour. We're not in the same agency. And the agency I was working with was paying me $13 per hour.
You said 13?
$13 per hour. And we're doing similar job. But I will even say I was doing more because I had to be on the phone at all times to guide a person in my home how to take care of my child. The burden, like if you remember, I also talk about the burden being on the sibling of that special need person. I've had my daughter when she was only 9 years old, pleading with a caregiver who was at home to say, please, you got to close the door and you got to pay attention to my brother because he opens the door and runs and he doesn't know if a vehicle is coming. He does not have any of that knowledge of the danger. and he's going to run. That was a 9-year-old playing with her toys, but still consciously, so soundly around to see that the adult around was not paying as much attention as should be. And I have to be on my phone. And I can tell you, if there's anybody that is so proud of being fired at work, at different jobs that she's done, it's me. Because when I get into a job, I'm getting ready to be fired. And I even tell the HR, I know you guys might fire me at 10 minutes. And they'll say, why? I say, because no matter what is going on here, if I have emergency to go back home because of my son, I'm going back immediately. And so the burden does not only stay on the parent, the waste, that's $5 difference that would have gone back to taxpayers, back to the government to be used for other benefits for other people. The burden also on a child, on the siblings growing up is something. And I would like to add that people always ask SSI, SSI. I have the figures here. And the figure is, it is not everybody that asks for SSI that is giving the SSI. People will say, oh, that is going to really help. It will help only if everyone that deserves to have it is having. Every year, over 1.2 million people will apply for SSI. Only a quarter of them will be awarded. Even when that parent, and like I earlier said, it's usually mothers that are the head of the family. And if I'm unable to work, you can imagine a lot of mothers unable to work as much as they can outside home because they have a child that needs their attention at home. This is something that Women in Dialogue also try to really let people know, that it's not just only mothers. There are mothers of special need and disabled children that need these benefits that we've been fighting for.
Absolutely. Just hearing you share that story, it's just so frustrating to hear all of the thousands of decisions that you have to make, that your children have to make, like this burden of care, or the cost burden really is just, it causes just so many barriers to doing the things that you want and need to do for yourself and your family. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
Kaiima, did you have anything you wanted to add? Or
Yeah, I'll add.
Yeah.
Just in terms of talking about the cost burden, I really want to look at formal versus informal caregiving. Informal caregiving, the grandparents without the legal documents to take a child to the doctor. They can't sign off on papers so that the child can see a mental health professional. And not just like struggling with care themselves, but care of the child because of all the restrictions that are in place. And some pay out of pocket when they can, but they have a limited income. So they end up just not going. And to manage the costs, a lot of these families are looking to organizations like Connectedly for help with basic needs and help just cutting through the red tape and a lot of the bureaucracy of it all. And we're reliant on grants and donations for funding oftentimes. And I think we're in when it comes to that, we're in a unique position because a lot of other organizations focuses on the child within that family dynamic. But we work specifically to support the grandparent or the parent in the situation, or caregiver. And these are often women pouring into others, their community, their their grandchildren, their children who may have different circumstances like an opioid addiction and things like that, that they're just trying to manage a lot of things. And I think we really try to tailor our programming to give them time to pour into self. And we're finding that they then have the capacity to be better caregivers in doing that. But I also want to talk about the different infrastructures within the city, such as transportation. That also plays a major role in what our families are struggling with because it's not reliable enough to get your child to school on time, or for a grandparent to go to an appointment and make it back in time before the children get out of school. So it's just a lot of different things at play here. Yeah.
Yeah, this is an ever deepening problem. Like the more you look at it, the more you notice. So I'm thankful for all of you just chiming in and offering some thoughts as it relates to your specific work and experience. I want to skip down a little bit. Well, yeah, I'm going to skip down a little bit to this question about the Gender Economic Equity Program, and we'll hopefully be able to acknowledge whatever we're missing in the questions a little bit later. But so all four of you and some of your coworkers have been meeting with Women's Way and different workshop facilitators to learn about gender economic equity, learn about the gender wealth gap, think about how big it is, what is it, and how it impacts our ability to do the work that we do. And kind of what tools do we have to start building in more practices that are promoting gender economic equity in every way possible. So I would love to hear from all of you an insight that you've learned over the course of the workshops. It could be really big, could be small, really anything that you're planning to take back to your community.
I'd say that this is not a one and done process. Often we think like, hey, we have these things in place and that's it, and we're good, and we mean well, so this is how things are going to be. But I've learned that equity is something that you need to continue to work at, and even the people with the best intentions are capable of harming others. And we you just need to continue to check in with yourself. I like the learning about calling people in and just being accountable for the outcome of our choices.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, a lot of what we've done has been pretty like deep interpersonal and within organizational reflection and like brainstorming about how things could be different, how things could be better. So it's really hard stuff to do. But yeah, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I want to
Anybody else?
piggyback off of that. We've already begun having conversations about restorative justice based in some of the sessions to really truly be in the gender equity work in the ways that we aspire to be and the ways that our colleagues are. We really want to continue thinking about what does internal accountability look like. We're moving with the assumption that because all of us are in this world and are exposed to misogyny and sexism and all of the problematic things that are taught to us from the time that we're born up until now, that unlearning is continuous. So when something happens, not if, but when something happens within our community where we speak into the space, something that we were taught by these white supremacist systems that are consistently acting upon us. What is our process around restorative justice? And that feels incredibly important so that we can continue to be accountable to our community to be in the gender equity work in the way that we say that we are. So we're taking our learnings and we want to have some process in place that is steeped in the principles of restorative justice, so that internally we can continue to, as Kaiima talked about, call each other in and kind of move through these ruptures that happen because of the ways in which we've all been socialized and will continue to be impacted by white supremacy.
Yeah, thank you. Again, really, really big, hard work to do, but like critical. And I think at Women's Way, we're also always trying to create opportunities to learn and grow. And yeah, we know conflict and mistakes are bound to happen. Hurt is bound to happen. Like it will. It's not, yeah, like you said, not an if, but a when. Yeah, I really appreciate that as well.
Yeah. In addition to the inner person development and asking the questions, saying how we might be harming people despite our having good intention, which is something that has helped me to look at what is the dialogue. And when I say what's the dialogue, is equity, the mindset, the what are the questions that I need to ask, that I need to put there before my organization? How much do we understand? How much are the things that we have not even researched as taught us, as we have learned through this past weeks? What are the factors that are really hindering this equity, and how can we, because it's not existing right now, and that's what is causing all this wealth gap. How can we bring it closer? If it's been 100 miles apart, how can we bring it a little bit more closer to 50 miles apart? A little step at a time. And what are we telling ourselves? What were we told that made us to accept that 100 miles apart? And then what dialogue are we going to hold with ourselves and with everybody to appreciate ourselves, to disabuse our mind from the brainwashing that have been washed through the years, from when we were born? And what are those things that we've been made to believe, which we have to remove, then re-understand ourselves and our community to enable us bridge that gap.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, with the narrative change, but like at the individual level, we have to constantly, that's like a constant commitment that we have to continue to remind ourselves care work is work. But and all the other things. Yeah, that's a huge part of it as well.
I think for me, being a part of this cohort has helped me to realize the depth of the problems that are before us. I think before this cohort participation, I was so centered on care and like operationalizing care as a direct service provider, and I would kind of like scratch my head and be like, why don't people value care? Like everyone needs care. Like we're all getting old one day. Like many of us have children. Like what's the problem? And I was kind of like perplexed, but then once I started hearing about like connecting the dots between like, oh well, like this is like the undervaluing of care makes sense because it was women's work, and it was we have a long history of it being women of color's work with slavery, and like, but like once I started connecting the dots and like the unfortunate legacy that we're all living, it made sense to me why, despite every human becoming older every day, and many of us having children or other people, even if they're not kids, that need care, that we love, society doesn't care about care. Like, that is like a deep seated paradox. Um, and it used to perplex me until I started like hearing in the the rooms, like, oh, well, it's related to these other two, like, deeply entrenched, unfortunate legacies. And it's kind of like, it's helped me just understand and realize how the work is connected. How gender equity and anti-racism and care, like, these are all interconnected things. So, that's been a huge takeaway for me right now, as opposed to before, when I was just like, how do I get money to, like, provide childcare? Like, why don't people care? So I thank you for that.
Good to hear that. Yeah, it's like it's so big, but then that also means there's so many people who are on our side who want something different. So like what can that open up? Uh, I'm realizing now we only have 10 minutes, so I want to open it up to Q&A. And then I want to come back to all of you to share out one call to action you have at the very end before we wrap up. So I'm seeing one question in the Q&A, and I encourage everyone who's here listening to feel free to ask more questions. You can put them in the Q&A. Ideally, if you put them in the chat, that's okay. I will read those as well. So I'll start off with this question from Relina. Hi, Relina. So in today's society, homes are being built and sold for $280,000. This is a pretty specific question. So do you believe a single woman or a single woman with children could afford a mortgage at a rate of $1,250 to $1,550? And this depends on their income as well as grant approved for being a first-time home owner. So is that an affordable mortgage for someone who's trying to buy their first home? I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this one. Yeah, okay.
No. So none of our clients could, like, afford that. That's sometimes like 50% or more of their take-home pay. Yeah, it's just completely not affordable unless the women that we have in our program that have been able to afford that once they graduate, they have received deep long-term investment to obtain an RN degree, where we watch the kids 4 years filling in the gaps. So that is really, like, it's possible, but it needs to come with upskilling after barrier mitigation, and it costs a lot of money. So, but we've seen it happen, and that's kind of part of why it's critical that funders fund long periods and deep. It's better to do deep funding than shallow, like lots of people get funded, because the shallow doesn't really do anything. And to that end, I'm going to put a link in the chat, because the housing barrier has been such a huge barrier for the population that we serve. We actually have an initiative coming up with another nonprofit that will essentially, single mothers of color will join this program and rent from this other nonprofit who's a housing developer. And at the end of a 2-year term, they will get 50% of the rent that they paid back as a down payment to build equity, because that is the way to long-term stability. So I'll put that link in the chat. It's not like happening yet. We're applying for grant funding to do the build of the homes, but the reason we're doing it is because it's like the only way really to do it for a large majority of people, given the current fragmented system that we have of, like, complete holes in the support net.
That sounds like an amazing program. And I'll be sure to copy that link and again put it in the community resource guide. I'm not seeing any more questions, which is okay, because I have one last question, which is again, this one call to action. I would love for like to just each of us kind of go down and share one thing that you want people watching to know about, to do, to keep learning about, to fund. So anybody can start. Philippa, you want to go first?
I'll go first. In Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia here, we, Women Dialogue, are so passionate about our program, Give Us Back Our Children, which is what I talked about with DHS taking children without really, first of all, helping the family or seeing how they can help the family. Poverty is not a crime. And that also linked to our national program on child tax credit, which is before the Congress. They're pushing. We've been on that with the councilwoman more for child tax credit, and also to see to it that it's paid on monthly. It's children money. Give it to them every month, so that the kind of poverty that makes children to be removed from their parents will be eliminated.
Thank you. So read up and learn more about Give Us Back Our Children, learn about what's happening at the federal level with the child tax credit and Care Income Now.
Correct.
Okay, I will share those links, so look out for the community resource guide. Who's next? Kaiima.
Oh,
I saw you come off mute.
got you. I think we need to remember that I know this is a cliche, but it really does take a village. And caregivers weren't ever meant to be isolated or do this alone. And just in terms of our elders, I just really would love for us to look to them as a source of wisdom and learn from them instead of kind of what we're doing as a society and just pushing them aside. Um, I don't know, let's begin to respect their journey.
I could share a little bit. Um, so, I think that I didn't say this in the narrative, but the other narrative that I think is really strong is that there's not enough. There's not enough resources. And therefore, crisis management is like what we can afford as a society. And I'd like to just invite all viewers, whoever is on this call, to think about in what sector is crisis management more efficient and cheaper, for lack of a better word, than prevention. ER visits are 10 times more costly than preventative care. Businesses that don't keep their people, it could be up to 200% of their salary that is lost. Fixing a bridge that collapses is going to cost much more than just maintaining it. Like, it just doesn't even make logical sense in any sector, including the private for-profit sector. But yet somehow it seems like it makes the most sense to just do like shallow investments for humans that are responding to a problem. Like once the problem already happens, there's a crisis management. And it's also not based in evidence. So, I always go back to science or social science to look at what does research say? What happens during or in societies that don't do it the way that we do, that have a preventative approach. And it's just flat not true that we don't have the resources and that it's less money. So that's something that was like my policymaker answer. We didn't get to that question, so I'm just sneaking it right in there. Um, but just really inviting like a more critical view of those assumptions.
So no on the scarcity mindset. There's so many resources. Yeah, this emoji. Yeah, and maybe doing some research, learning about other countries that are doing it different, thinking about it differently. Thank you. Okay, last but not least, Marquita.
I see the time, so I'm going to keep it short. We are living in really scary, unsafe times right now, and there's a lot happening that is meant to divide us. There's a lot happening with scarcity of resource. There's a lot happening that's attacking our nervous systems and our hearts. So I really want to encourage folks to find your communities, find the people that you feel kinship with, find the people that you feel connection with, find the people that you have safety with, and build resource there. I acknowledge that not everyone is a safe person to be around, but find your people. This is the time to build community. This is the time to share resource. This is the time to find healing in community. This is the time for us to come together. White supremacy is an entity that wants us to be separate from each other. So it's a time for us to come together with the people that we had kinship with.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for coming together and bringing together such an interesting discussion. Yeah, I just can't underscore like how unique each of your approaches and creative each of your approaches is to the work that you do, for like an ever deepening, ever more complex care gap. So it's been such a pleasure to have this conversation with you and to get to work with you. And yeah, I thank you so much. I'm going to hand it off to Kelly to wrap us up. Thanks everybody for bearing with us. We'll be done in just a moment. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And as the slide is coming up, thank you, Aathira, and our panelists for your participation and engagement. Marquita, I really appreciated that last sort of call to action there and that nudge for us to come together, and I'll be thinking about that. So we have resources and slides coming to you, our audience. So if you want to learn more about this and you want to see the slides, they'll be coming to you. We'll also encourage you to take the survey and tell us what you thought about this session and what you'd like to see us focus on in the future. We have one more Closing the Gender Wealth Gap series that focuses on the gender wealth gap, gender wealth framework, and that will be in January. We'll be talking about freedom, joy, and belonging. So that'll be a really good one. And then moving forward in our public education programs, we'll be talking and thinking about strengthening the social safety net. So be on the lookout for that. So let us know what you thought about today. Resources are coming your way, and come join us in January to talk more about freedom, joy, and belonging. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night, everyone.